You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. And this week, I've got a really interesting interview this week. I got to be honest, I really enjoyed this one. I am talking to Jack Bosch. Now, if you don't know Jack runs a course that's called the Land Profit Generator, but not just that. He is a successful land investor. He invests in multifamily. He invests in residential. This guy is all over the place, all these kind of different areas of the real estate investing world. And we go deep into what makes land investing his thing. And I got to be honest, he converted me. About halfway through, I found myself thinking like, hey, I should invest in land. So if you've never thought about it, or you don't know anything about it, this is a fantastic intro to land investing. Go say hi to Jack. He's at landprofitgenerator.com. He's got a bunch of free trainings and stuff you can go check out there. Really great dude, really fun interview. I am really looking forward to this, and I hope you enjoy it and get some value out of it. And so without further ado, here's my interview with Jack Bosch. All right, everybody, I'm here with Jack Bosch from Land Profit Generator. That's at landprofitgenerator.com. Jack, how are you, man? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much. I'm excellent.
Yeah. So I definitely want to, I think most people can tell by the intro that you are, like we were just talking about this, you're a land guy.
Right.
But I want to take a step back just a little bit and, ask how you got started in real estate investing in general, because I know you do a whole bunch of different stuff, and then maybe kind of walk you through like how you got into land specifically. I don't know if that's how you got started or you got to that later, but how did you find yourself where you're at today?
Wonderful. Yes. So as you can tell probably from my accent, I'm actually an immigrant in the United States. I'm from Germany. I came over here about 20 something years ago and 22 years ago, and with literally just 2 suitcases to finish my college degree. And what happened is I fell in love with both the U.S. and with a girl. And that girl is now my wife of 17 years. So that all worked out. But she's from an immigrant herself. She's from Honduras. And we met here in college. I came here to finish my college degree. She was already here 1 year away from finishing up. So we finished our college degrees at the same time. And we basically said, you know what, let's give this a try. Let's stay here. I was lucky and blessed to get a job, get a work visa, get a job, and to ride that job all the way, or be able to thrive, or not thrive, but like manage to keep my job, let's put it that way, to getting the green card. It took 5.5 years, but somewhere halfway into that, about the third into it, I realized that this job thing wasn't the right thing for me, because I had to travel 100%. I had to be gone 100%. I had only a 2 weeks vacation, and my entire family is in Germany. My wife's entire family is in Honduras, Central America. We wanted to keep touch with our families. We wanted to stay in touch with our families. We wanted to make enough money to actually even afford the airplane tickets to go over there once a year. Yeah. And all of that was not really happening during that time. And so we kind of realized, plus the dot-com bubble burst. That was in the technology company I worked in. I'm not a technology guy, but I got like a job in their business department. And And I felt like the entire 5.5 years I was bluffing my way through it, because I was dealing with technology all day long, and I learned enough to manage and to get through. But I realized that wasn't my career path, that wasn't my industry, that wasn't my things. I needed to get out. And then the dot-com bubble burst. They let literally 40% of the employees were let go of that company. I was lucky to survive again. But it all changed my outlook on life, my outlook on profession, my outlook on the career path. And I realized that the 40-40, or the 40 years, and then 40 years or 40 or 50 weeks, a year and 2 weeks vacation, it's not a plan that I can subscribe to. we realized we need to do something different. And we had no idea, no real estate experience, nothing, not even the language of real estate we understood in terms of like drywall. What is drywall at that point? I didn't know. I mean, the walls look pretty dry over here, right? And like things like there's still words today that I come across in the construction industry that I have never heard because but so we started looking through stuff and reading up on things and we came across wholesaling and we kind of stumbled into real estate, tried a few bunch of techniques, tried to flip a wholesale house, weren't successful because we calculated all the repairs wrongly. And then because we didn't know if it cost $10,000 or $1,000 to repair a bathroom and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden we stumbled into land and we got our first piece of land for $400 and sold it to the neighbor across the street for $4,000 that same day. And we didn't have to touch anything. We didn't have to estimate any repairs. We didn't have to, we saw the property because we felt like we wanted to. Now I haven't seen any properties for 12 years anymore. And because it's all done online and we didn't have to deal with repairs, with mold, with contractors, no tenants, toilets, termites, none of that. We just bought an $8,000 property for 5 cents on the dollar and sold it for 50 cents on the dollar to the neighbor. And we made money. We were like, we can do that again. And so we started doing more and more and more. And soon enough, we didn't even look at houses anymore. By now, we have done over 4,000 land deals.
Wow, that is awesome. I mean, it's really funny, man, because, I've done a handful of these interviews now, right? And it's so funny how almost everybody has the story of, I did my first deal, but I didn't make any money or I lost money or I barely made money because, and it's always because I thought the repairs were going to be X and they were really Y, right? So I think it's so interesting to think about, like you said, like land doesn't have a building on it. So when you were getting started, pursuing land deals or you started going down that path rather than going down the traditional wholesaling path, right? And I know you said, you own a significant number of property now, but what were the things that really attracted you to land specifically? Or like, what are the things that if an investor is listening to this right now and they don't do land right now, or that's not part of their business, what would you say to sell them on that idea of investing in land rather than flipping or wholesaling or wholetailing or whatever they're doing?
Yeah. So the main thing is what I realized over the years that you can do almost everything with land that you can do with houses. Just it doesn't include the number one item that causes headaches, and that is the house. Right. So I love houses. I have almost 50 rental properties. We have apartment complexes. We have all this stuff as cash flow sources. But from the flipping point of view, if I can do the same without the house, I'm eliminating 80% of the complexities that are part of the deal. And it's not wrong. I mean, I know people who flip 500 houses a year and they're happy with that and so on. So it's just, I rather flip 500 lots a year or 100 or whatever the number is. This year we're looking to flip about 150. And it's because when there's no house on it, there's nobody that can burgle or can break stuff, that can steal stuff. There's no special surprises that usually can come up. Like there's no foundation issues you didn't see. There's no roof damages you didn't see. So all these issues are just out the window. Yet at the same time, you can buy these properties, you can flip them, you can change the zoning, you can even split them, which you usually can't do with a house. You can sell them, you can wholesale them, you can retail them, you can do seller financing. We do that a lot. We love that. And the best part about land is, particularly when you focus on the land below $100,000, it's almost always 100% owned free and clear by the owners.
Yeah.
People usually lend on land, so it's always a cash game or a seller financing game. And because of that, because of these owners, they don't know what to do with it. Many of them have inherited it, and they're like sitting on that. Dad gave it to them. They're in Pennsylvania. The lot is in Texas, and they don't care. They're never going to go down there. So they're literally giving you way higher discounts than they give you on house. So we never pay more than 25 cents on the dollar per piece of land. So we just literally this week we sold a property that we paid for $10,000 and we sold it for $47,000. And that's market value. For about $50,000 is market value. So we sold it for 47 and we bought it for 10. What is that? That's about 20% off market value. And that's the nice part. So you're building these buffers and you're limiting all these complexities. And yet you can do the same thing, and you can make the same or better profits than people do in house. We've done deals with $130,000 profits, with $80,000 profits, but also some deals with $5,000, $3,000 profits. Just like in the house world, you wholesale a house, you make $5,000. You wholesale a bigger deal, you make $50,000. You rehab a house, you make $30,000, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000, and it's the exact same thing in land. So you make the same money, just with less work and with less hassle. Now there's work, but it's less work.
Yeah. So I'm interested. And I don't know much about the land space really. So I'm curious, because my specialty is lead generation, right? So how do I get the whole idea of a motivated home seller, right? Like I know who that person is, and, I know the basic ways that we go out and find those people. How does it differ when you get into the land selling space? I mean, I guess I'm going to break that into two questions. Like one is it still the same kind of idea where you're looking for motivated land sellers in the same way that people look for motivated home sellers? And then what are the basic kind of processes or channels that you use to go out and find those people? Or does it work totally differently?
Yes. So the answer is yes. We're looking for the motivated sellers. However, they're a little bit different than in the house world. To this day, I don't really get why anyone would give up a perfectly good house, even though it might need some repairs, for substantially below market value. I mean, I get it. They don't want to put the money into it. They think the repairs cost much more and so on. But on the land side, we're dealing mostly with, it's a variety of people, but the majority of people that either have had the land in the family for a long time, and they just never did what they initially wanted to do with the land. So it's somebody that perhaps in their 40s bought a lot in Texas and one in Florida, and they wanted to retire there. They wanted to build a retirement home there, and once they're done with working, they want to move there. Well, either health issues came up, or now the grandkids are born, and they no longer want to be moving. They no longer want to be away. So they're sitting on these lots 1,000 miles away, and they really don't know what to do with them anymore. At some point of time, they might have listed it with a bad realtor who put like no picture and a two-liner on there, and because of that, it didn't sell. So they're, in their mind, they think like, well, this property sits there, it's not selling. What do I do? And then our offer comes in for 20 cents on the dollar. And they're like, yeah, no, it's not what I wanted, but I just want to get rid of it. They ask their kids, do you want these lots? And the kid's like, no, we're living La Vida Loca in LA. I don't want the lots, right? And then they're like, okay, well, if nobody wants it, they offer me like, it's worth $50,000. They're offering me like $8,000 for it. I'll take it because $8,000 is what I need for the next medical bill, for a vacation or something like that. And they get rid of it. Another case is when they inherited the property, and they don't want it anymore, because particularly land is one thing that houses also has, but land, if just kept, if you just hold on to land, it doesn't generate income. Instead, it costs property taxes. So if somebody's an heir, inherits a $50,000 property, and now they have to pay $1,000 a year in property taxes that they might not have, they might just jump on the opportunity to sell that thing because they don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
So these are some of the cases. Then there's other cases where somebody just had it for generation that perhaps they thought it would develop, because it might be more rural land. One of the three kinds of lands that we focus on is rural land. The other one is land right in the outskirts of big cities, along the path of growth. And the third one is an infill lot. Infill lots you usually don't get for 20 cents on the dollar. It's more like 40, 50 cents on the dollar. But this rural land is land that will never going to be appreciating a whole lot, but they bought it for $20,000. It's worth $20,000. And they're just like, you know what? We had our fun. When the kids were little, we went out there camping and so on. It's time to get rid of it. Yeah, you give me $4,000 for it, you'll take it. And then we go and sell it to another family that wants to have their own ranch out there, that wants to have their own place where they can go ATVing, RVing, bonfires, and things like that. And we might even offer seller finance. So we bank this property worth 20, take it for 4, sell it to somebody for 20 with a $5,000 down payment and monthly payments of $400. We get all our money back right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we have no money in the deal and we get cash flow now. So these are some of the reasons why people sell these properties. And then how do we get the leads? Our best way is to go with direct mail. So we get a list from a list service or from the county of everyone that owns land within a certain time, within a certain area, within a certain price range, potentially for a certain time. We have a few filtering criteria. And then we go send them a letter, and we get anywhere from 5 to 20% response rates from people. So we get a tremendous response rate.
That's really high.
If you do online lead generation, you can do it online too, but it requires quite a bit of a different skill set that you have and so on. We know one of our mentors one of our coaches in our system, he actually switched, and he's an SEO expert, and he gets all these leads now online. But most of our 99% of our students and us, we use the direct mail because it just works so well.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said for not a huge barrier to entry to do direct mail too, right? It's like not like you really have to like learn this complicated skill set. You can just kind of do it and, start hopefully bringing in deals or cash flow right away. I think that's pretty awesome.
Particularly for the ones that have our system, because they have the letter, they have the mailing house, and they know that they don't have to send 100,000 either. They can send 500 to 1,000, and they get a whole bunch of leads already coming their way that they can work with and get deals from. So it's low volume. It's a very much, as you said, lower barrier of entry.
So what about the process of selling the land to a buyer? Are you going out and finding the buyer similar to like a wholesaler would have a buyer's list and a seller's list, right? So like, do you do both sides of that, or how does that work? Are there like auction sites for land? I feel like I've heard of that, but I don't really know how that works.
Yes. So there is a buyer's list is always amazing to have. So I would want to answer the question in two parts, the short term and the long term. On the short term, if you get started in real estate, you don't have a buyer's list, right? Because you start with zero. So in that case, what I recommend our students, what our students are very successful with, is you use the social media platforms where people are hanging out. So right now, literally, one of our students posted we have a Facebook group where our students help each other be successful and then ask questions, and I ask questions, and our team asks questions. And there's one person that just posted. She posted something on Facebook Marketplace. And in 2 days, she got over 2,000 inquiries about that property.
Yeah.
She was able to field. Now, that's a little extreme. Usually, you don't get that many. But it's common that if you use Facebook Marketplace is a great place. Zillow is a great place. You can post your properties on Zillow. You post them on Craigslist, you post them on Redfin and those different websites where nowadays people go look for properties. You're doing a direct-to-consumer kind of marketing on that end. Yeah. And most of these are free. Craigslist is free, Facebook is free, Zillow is free. There's a few other ones like the big 800-pound gorilla of the land. It's not an auction site, but it's a listing site. They do charge. That's called Land Watch. Landwatch.com. has several million visitors a month, has several 100,000 properties on there. You do have to pay to be on there and pay a little extra to be in the front page and the visibility for those kind of things. But you don't really have to pay for it. These other tools are extremely popular and they're free. And so at the beginning, you go sell through those. But what you definitely want to make sure that every person that contacts you, you ask them for their contact information. Now you capture the contact information and you build your buyer's list. And then as you build your buyer's list over time, you go first to your buyer's list, sell the properties there, and then you go list it on these other platforms. And many times you don't even have to list it on the platforms because you go sell it to your buyer's list in the first place.
Yeah, I think that is really, really good advice. And if anybody like just kind of, they kind of passed over that and didn't catch it, right? This idea of when you are doing any kind of marketing, so even if you're just posting on Facebook Marketplace, right? The idea of building that long-term relationship with people that might want to buy their properties, that's just as important in land as it is in houses. I think that's absolutely huge. So you right now, mentioned this a couple of times, but you have a coaching program called Land Profit Generator, which people can go to at landprofitgenerator.com, where you are sort of teaching these processes and the systems that you use and kind of how to go through these deals. So for your average student, so someone that's like getting started in land, what are they bringing in terms of marketing budget? Like what do they kind of come into the program with? What does that kind of beginner level land investor look like? And then when people start to scale it up, what does that look like? How are those two things different?
So I would say there's a spectrum. And yes, we actually have a home study course and live events and all those kind of things. But there's a spectrum. And on that spectrum is, let's say over here is you doing everything yourself. And over here, you're outsourcing everything. Because we got a student that's very successful. She's a night nurse. Well, she can't really do anything. She sleeps during the day, just goes grocery shopping, picks the kids up from school, and then goes back to work, right?
I'm like laughing because I always hear about these people and I'm like, I can barely get out of bed in the morning to my regular job that's during the day. It kind of blows my mind. There's so many people out there that are like so ambitious and motivated. Definitely mad respect to this person who's doing this.
Absolutely. Same here. And we've got another one who is a United States soldier. I mean, he never knows when he has time and so on. Well, they go over here, they go outsource almost everything. Somebody else, let's say, is a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad or, God forbid, unemployed perhaps for a time being right now. Well, they have a little bit more time, or they have a job where they have some more extra time. They can go over here. So if time is what you have, but not money, you do more yourself. And if you have a little bit of a budget and no time, then you go over here where you outsource more. So having said that, you can do this literally for the cost of having a phone number, like let's say a virtual mailbox costs $10, $15. So you can even use Google Voice, which is free. Then you have the cost of the mailing, which might be, let's say, if you send out 1,000 letters a month, that's perhaps $500-$600 a month. And then the cost of, if you take your own phone calls, there's no cost to that. So literally, you can do this for as little as, let's say, $500-$600 a month. And 1,000 letters a month, there's no way you're not going to get deals. You're definitely going to get deals. Or you can go all the way over here, with which we have a mailing house that we don't. We know a mailing house that a lot of our students work with. They're very competitive. Their minimum mailing amount is 50 letters. So you don't have to.
That's small. For a minimum, that's quite small. That's awesome.
You don't have to send large volumes to be able to outsource that. Then we work with a call center that works now. That might cost you $150, $200 a month at 1,000 letters a month volume or so. So you now might have $800 a month in cost. And then if you have, really, that's kind of it. I mean, it doesn't cost a lot.
You're like waiting for the other stuff to come, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, you already have a bank account, right? It might, if you want to set up an LLC or so. My wife Michelle and I, we did our first deals in our own name, right? And then attorneys don't advise for that, and I'm not giving advice to do it that way. I'm just telling a story how we did it. We did our name, and then we used the profits to set up an LLC. We always say faster is better than perfect. So rather take action than take perfect action, right? So we took action, we made money, then we used that money to set up our LLCs and so on. But an LLC might cost you, if you do it yourself, a couple of $100 to set it up. If you have an attorney do it, it might cost a couple $1,000. I don't know. And then a little bookkeeping down the road. But bookkeeping you only need when you're successful, right? When you're making money. So a lot of these expenses, a few more expenses pop up once you make money. Because like title cost, closing cost on the deal cost a little bit. But hey, you're only going to close on a deal when you make money. So if you make $10,000 and it's cost you $1,000, well, then your net is still $9,000. So most of the expenses only actually incur when you actually make money. Your base expenses are mailing, are the mailing house, are their call center, and having a phone number that people can call you to, like a 1-800 number, which might cost you $10 a month. Perhaps a PO box that costs $30 a month.
Yeah, I mean, I think even from what you're describing, right? I mean, I think that we kind of met you. We talked about this a little bit before the podcast started.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of reasons why traditional real estate investing, house flipping, wholesaling, and obviously I love that industry, and that's where all my clients are and where we spend our time. But it's extremely competitive, right? It's highly, highly competitive, and that raises prices, right? It's just like if there's a restaurant that everybody wants to get in and you can't find a table, like chances are they're going to start raising their prices, right? It's how it works. And you were kind of pointing this out, which I never really thought about, but was true. You were like, what other land people do you know? There's like maybe one other guy that I know, right? So it's just the level of competition is so different. Why do you think that is? Is it just not as popular because people get attracted to the whole like HGTV house flipper kind of thing? Like, why do you think land is kind of a little bit on the down low right now in that kind of investing world?
Yeah, so I think definitely the HGTV, Flip This House, whatever the shows are called, Flipping Vegas, Flipping Chicago, Flipping, you name it, definitely have played a role in that people have gone after houses and they don't even think about land. Second is houses are sexy. I mean, there's something sexy about taking an ugly duckling and making it into a swan. Right? It's absolutely beautiful. It fills you with a sense of pride, and I don't mind that. We have some houses. When we drive by, I look at it. It's like we flipped this one. Look at how beautiful it is. But after flipping a few, I was like, this is not something I want to do ongoing. I went back to only doing land because land is just more boring. And I want to quote Warren Buffett, who says, like, in business, boring is good.
Yeah.
Because you don't want drama in business. You don't want constantly stuff popping up. That just increases your stress level. And the other reason is that people have been brainwashed almost to think that land doesn't cash flow, that land is expensive. And while this is true for the downtown 2 acres right next to the football stadium, right, that is worth $20 million, it is not true for the outskirts of town. Right? When you have a million people city in the outskirts of it, you go out 3 to 5 miles, the city is growing. An acre in the city might be worth $300,000. An acre outside here might be worth $30,000, but it will be worth $300,000 when the city comes and gulps it. So these are easy sales because you can buy them for 3, sell them for 30 to somebody who's then going to sit on it and wait on it. But to the person who owns it for the next 20 years, they will have to pay property taxes every year. So it does not cash flow for them, but it increases in value. But what most people have been taught is like, I have this piece of land, I have to pay property taxes all this long. It's sucking money out of my pocket. I don't want it. And it is not doing anything. And so on and so forth. So people have just not paid attention to it. Plus the selling is a little bit different, but it's either way. So in any case, people the HGTV, the focus is on something else. Everyone says like houses. Nobody says land over here. And land over here is like, you can make the same money. And some properties we have properties sometimes where there's 10 people fighting over them and wanting to get it. So if you pick the right kind of properties, the sale can be just as quickly. If you pick the wrong kind of property, the property might sit there. We have properties that might sit there for 2-3 months before they sell, but they still sell, and we still make 2 to 5 times our money usually.
See, it's interesting to me because I think that relative, like you were saying, it's kind of boring, right? That's what makes it appealing to me, right? And I'm not an investor. I don't invest in real estate, but I think if I was going to do that, I would invest in land precisely because of that reason, right? The complexity level when you put a house on something just skyrockets. And but I think ironically for a lot of people, I imagine that part of it too is just psychologically we kind of understand how to value a house because we've all lived in a house, right? So you have some idea of like, oh, it's stainless steel countertop or whatever, right? It's got a really nice stove in it or it's a really nice whatever. You can kind of picture yourself in it and see the value on it. Whereas land is kind of like unrealized value. And so it's very hard to kind of understand how it's priced or whether it's high or low.
Exactly. Even successful house flippers ask me constantly, how do you value the land? And we have a 5-step process that is very simple. Within like 2 to 5 minutes, you have the value of the land. It's very simple. Now, the nice part is we don't have to get the exact value of the land because when we make an offer of 20 cents on the dollar, can we afford to be a little bit off?
There's a huge buffer built into that price already.
Buffer built in, yeah. So we just need to get a ballpark value. But you said it right. It's boring. It is. People don't know how to handle it. But that has been our blessing because that has allowed us to build what we've built without anyone even paying attention to us.
Are you an investor who wants to dominate your local market? Do you want more leads and deals online? Then download your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint absolutely free at www.adwordsnerds.com/gift. What are you waiting for? Go to www.adwordsnerds.com/gift right now to get your copy of the Motivated Seller
So I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions about this. I'm very interested in this. Let me ask you, I've got two. I definitely want to get into what's in your program because I kind of want to buy your program now. You're selling me on your program, which is what this podcast is terrible for me. Anytime someone comes on this podcast, I'm like, let me in your program. But so my question though is like, so we've talked about kind of like a lot of the benefits and stuff.
I'll give you free access to it.
Yeah, oh, that's even better. Do that and I'll talk all about it. But you've worked with a bunch of people. So you've seen a bunch of people come to this program, and I'm like all programs, right? There are people that like are super successful and people that flame out, right? Through no fault of the actual content. They just whatever. So looking back and seeing all these people go through this process, what are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to get involved in land or to learn about it? And how can, if people are listening to this and they want to start exploring it, how can they avoid those problems?
So the biggest mistakes are probably two that come to mind. One is they get emotionally involved with getting their first deal. Bill Gates said one time that business is not emotional. Business is just numbers and it's statistics and it's activities and it's strategy, but it's not emotional, right? It's execution and so on, but it's not emotional. So if you keep the emotions out, then you basically look at this. If you write a certain amount of letters, you get a certain amount of responses, you make a certain amount of offers, you get a certain amount of acceptances. That has been proven to be true again and again and again without any exceptions for the last 12, 15, 16 years that we've been doing that and for the last 10 years that we've been teaching this. So that leads me to the other one, right? So the point is what people do is they send out 100 letters, they get 10 phone calls, and they expect their first deal to be in there. And if their first deal is not in there, they're all like, this crap doesn't work, and they put it away and they move on to the next shiny penny. Well, there's something like what's called the law of large numbers. The law of large numbers means that on average, our students get a deal, and we ourselves too get a deal for every 300 to 500 letters we send out. But does that mean that if we send 300 or 500 letters, there's going to be a deal in there? Not automatically, right? What on average, there's a deal in there. But it might be that we have to send 2,000 letters, and then in the last 100 letters of the 2,000, there's 4 deals in there or 5 deals in there. And all of a sudden, our averages come true. Our averages have come true every single time if you make the sample size big enough. And the sample size doesn't have to be 100,000 letters. If you make the sample size over time, a couple of thousand letters, 2,000, 3,000 letters, on average, usually, all of a sudden, you get 3, 4, 5 deals in, and you're like, oh my God, that happens. You just don't know if that's in the first 100 or in the last 100 of that sample size. So people get too emotionally involved, and what they end up doing is they end up making 60, 70% of market value offers on those first deals just to get a deal, but now they have no more margin left to make a profit on the deal, right? So you got to take the emotion out and you got to just follow the system. And if you follow the system, you get the deals. And the second one is really plays into that is stay consistent. I've seen the people that fail most is the people who get out of the gate like crazy for 3 weeks, and then they have a wedding come up, and then they have a bachelor party come up, and then they have this come up and that come up, and they do nothing for the next 2 months. And then the emotion, and then all of a sudden it's hard to get going. But those that get going and send 100 letters a week, like 100 letters a week, but consistently, they'll all of a sudden they get a deal, they get another deal, they get another deal. And lo and behold, within 6 months, they've done 5, 6 deals, they've made $100,000, and they quit their jobs and they start moving on to start cranking up and being successful. So it's really consistently and knowing that it is a numbers game at the end of the day.
I think that was amazingly put. And people, you probably saw me go, we could see each other. You probably saw me smiling in the beginning because it's like, I literally did a whole episode of this podcast on that exact thing, but it's the same problem with online marketing, right? It's the people that think, okay, if I have a 20% conversion rate of leads to deals, 1 out of every, whatever it is, I'm like, okay, or 5%, I should say, right? So 1 out of every 20 leads becomes a deal. Well, I got 20 leads, therefore I should produce a deal, right? And the understanding there that statistic is over a certain volume, right? And that the smaller the sample size, the higher the likelihood that you will get really weird results, both good and bad. I'm sure you've had students that sent out 100 letters and got 5 deals and were like, I'm rich, this is going to be like this forever.
One student sent out 10 letters, they sent out 30 letters, got 9 answers, and got 6 deals out of that, made over 100 grand.
And then you hit that person for a testimonial as quickly as humanly possible.
People who send out 3,000, got nothing, send another 3,000 and got 32 deals.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just all of a sudden they got 6,000 letters and 32 deals. That's less than 200 letters for one deal and so on. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I think my friend Nick, who's really successful business person, and his business is he grows other people's businesses. He takes an equity stake in their companies. And so he's just done this in a bunch of different, industries, and really, really smart guy. And he's got this kind of like general rule of thumb that I really like, which is he always says, anytime he's thinking about doing something new, he asks himself, can I do this forever? And if he can't do it forever, he doesn't do it. Right. And so the idea is like, you only take on, a marketing challenge or a business or something that you can actually be consistent in, right? If you have to hit the lottery in your first week or you're going to go bankrupt, well, maybe it's not the right time.
I would say it's not a treasure hunt. It's a business. And that really makes land flipping different from many other techniques. Like I do apartment buildings, and yes, that's a business too. But first of all, it's a million times more complicated. And then currently in the current market conditions, finding an apartment complex that makes sense, it's a treasure hunt. It's a treasure hunt. But the land business is not a treasure hunt. It's a business that is a cookie cutter business that just works again and again and again if you implement it the proper way.
That I think is what at least someone like me. So I always say like, I want to put everything in a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. Show me, online marketing is very much like that. There's a funnel, just like you said, there's a bunch of different stages. There are metrics I'm trying to hit in every stage. If, you're running AdWords and your impressions look good and your clicks look good, but your conversion rate is poor, I know where the problem is and I know what to look in and fix, right? So that approach is really cool. There's sort of a different kind of tack to go down, but how does land track with the rest of the housing market? I know right now a lot of investors are worried about a tightening housing market. I don't know if that's 100% going to happen in 2019, but I do know that a significant number of people have told me that's what they're concerned about. So does land kind of follow the housing market? Is it neutral to it? Like, what's that relationship look like?
Right. So just one word quickly to what you said. On the selling side, we're following 100% internet marketing techniques on the selling side of this property. Because what you want to do is you don't want to just to put a property on Zillow with a picture. No, you want to follow the exact same techniques that you probably teach and show people in your podcast on there. You want to have a proper flow of the listing. You want to have a proper sales copy, right? We're following the AIDA method in our listings, right? We're doing all these different things to make sure that it's that the property, and that's how we stand apart from everyone else on the selling side. So I just want to throw that in from a point of view of like internet marketing. That's exactly what we do on the selling side. So now to your question on how land is tracking houses. So there's two kinds of land that tracks housing in a different way. So first of all, I belong to a mastermind with over 100 people where the average person does probably over 200 deals a year, 200 house deals a year. I'm the only land guy in there. But they do house deals a year.
If you want to shout out to your mastermind, you can if you want to.
No, I just belong to that one. It's like you have to do like a lot of deals to even belong to. I have my own mastermind for land flippers called Ultimate Boardroom, but this is a different one. All I want to say is I went there, and when we talked, this was the subject of the last meeting. What's the market doing? The consensus is really that the market is actually not so much tightening. It is, but it is finally getting back to a normal market. We haven't had a normal market in 16 years. Like the last time we had a normal real estate market was in 2003. 2004, it started accelerating like crazy. 2005 went in overdrive. 2006 went even more overdrive. 2007, it crumbled. Then it went down. Then it went back on the bottom for a while. And then it came back up for the last 10 years. But we are now finally getting to a market, and people screaming that this is a tightening market, the world is coming to an end. No, it is normal to have a house on the market for 3 months before it sells. It is not normal to have a house on the market and have 25 offers in the second day.
Right.
So this is just like we're back to a world where life is normal. Now, might there be a recession? Yes. I personally don't think it's going to be very strong. But still, to answer your question, the high value, ready for development land in the prime positions, the multi-million-dollar land that the Toll Brothers, all the different builders and so on buying up, that land is actually the value of that land is ahead of the house market. Because builders, the moment they see foot traffic dropping, they stop buying new land. So as a result, that value drops a little bit before house values drop.
Oh, okay.
And they also start buying before they start building again. So in an upswing, that goes up before the houses start going up. Right? Because they're seeing the early indicators and then either stop buying or they start buying. The land on the outskirts of town in the rural areas actually lags the overall community, the overall economy, because we're selling to the end buyer. And the end buyer is only then tightening up when he loses their job, when the economy goes down, when unemployment goes up, and so on. Then at that point of time, the end buyer starts tightening a little bit their belt and not buy as much or not pay as much for land. So the land we're dealing with actually has right now that we're like on a 10-year boom or so. If the market takes a little dip, we have a longer runway in our industry than the house flippers have, which is actually a nice thing. I think right now we're in the market of our lifetimes. Like, we can buy properties cheap and we can sell very high. The buyers are there, they're bidding, they have cash. It's like it's the market of our lifetime. How long will that market last? I'm thinking probably 2 to 3 years. I don't know if it's going to be that much. So that's why I tell my students, if you want to get started, you got to get started now because you want to really take advantage of this window right now and make the most we can. Just this week, we sold a property. We made $130,000. We made $40,000, $37,000 on a deal. We're even having a lot in Beverly Hills that we got on a contract for $305 that we're listing for $600. That's worth over $1 million. I mean, the market is just crazy hot. But people are buying like crazy.
Yeah. I think what you said is actually really insightful. This idea of we've been in a really wonderful market for a long time. And so even just regressing to the mean a little bit feels hard. And, something that someone told me that I thought was really true is that, this is going to be a period where a lot of investors who have just their whole careers, they've specialized in a certain kind of deal and they don't have any flexibility in what they can do. They don't have the ability to adapt to the market. They're going to have a really, really tough time. And so I would definitely say, if you're an investor that's listening to this and you do, you're just a wholesaler or you're just a flipper, whatever, look at what other investors are doing, the different types of deals that are out there, because I think the more diverse we can all get, whether it's diversity in the kind of marketing that you're doing or diversity in the kind of deal that you're doing or whatever it is, the better off I think everybody's going to be. So why don't you, Jack, you tell people, this was awesome. It was really, really fascinating. If people want to know more about you or they want to, they're curious about Land Profit Generator, how can they learn more? How can they get started with you?
Absolutely. Well, you can go to landprofitgenerator.com. There's some videos in there that you can watch. And some training material that's all for free and so on. You can also find me on Facebook. We have a Facebook group that is called, as a slightly different name, it's called Forever Cash, because my wife and I were always talking about we use the land deals for cash and for cash flow, and then we roll the cash we make over into additional real estate so that we build cash flow and so on. And you can go to the Facebook group Forever Cash, Land for Pennies, and join us there and see. It's usually restricted for students only, but right now it's all we open it up for a little window of time just for people to see how well this works. And there's not a week or even usually a couple of days pass by without one of our students just posting another success story. And it's like, I got my first deal, I got my first acceptance, I sold my first deal, I made this, I made that. It's really a wonderful, wonderful support group. And when a question gets answered, there's like 20 people answering the question, experienced new students. It's a really fun environment to be in. And just perhaps one quick word also to the selling thing with the economy. Now, we have done the beautiful part about this land strategy is that we have done it on the way up in the market, on the peak of the market, on the way down, on the bottom, on the way up. And it has worked. We've been teaching this for 10 years. If you look at 10 years ago, the market was in the gutters, yet people made $100,000 on deals and so on. Because it's a niche strategy that most people don't look at, there's always enough land to flip and always enough buyers for it.
Well, that's awesome. I definitely encourage everyone who's listening to this, go check out Jack. You can find him at landprofitgenerator.com. And then I'll have links to the Facebook group and everything. I'll grab that and I'll put it in the show notes for this episode. You can get all our episodes at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. So we'll have the links there. Jack Bosch, thank you so much, man. This was really fascinating. And I'm doing it, man. I'm going to get into land investing in my literally non-existent spare time. I'm going to do this and I'll let everybody know how I do. But I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing what you know, man. That was fascinating.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's a little different than AdWords, but hey, we run AdWords for our land customers. We build our buyers list with AdWords. We follow all the internet marketing techniques when selling the land, because at the end of the day, you're listing something for sale. You want to generate traffic to it. And it's all the same thing. The purchase side is different. The selling side is pretty much the same. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. All right. Talk to you soon, Jack. Thank you. All right, everyone. That's it for this week's episode of the REI. What is this place called? The REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. I completely forgot. Hey, if you are not in our Facebook group, you need to come and check that out. That's at adwordsnerds.com/group. It is free. It is awesome. I do a ton of free training in there. In fact, I just did an in-depth training in there about how we go and steal our competitors' traffic in AdWords. So if you're in a competitive market or a tough market, you got to go and check that out. And again, that's at the REI Marketing Nerds Facebook group at adwordsnerds.com/group. And if you're not on my mailing list, I have been creating what is single-handedly, I think, the most valuable mailing list for real estate investors anywhere on the planet. I'm really, really proud of the work that we've been doing. High quality trainings, lots of information, really, really good stuff. And you can go and get on the list at adwordsnerds.com/list. That's adwordsnerds.com/list. If you're not in those places, I don't know what you're doing, but I really appreciate you listening to this podcast. So thank you so much. I will see you next week. Dan Barrett out. Talk to you soon. Bye.
This is the podcastfactory.com.